They're becoming much better, but they're making us pay more. Right?
So SEO, as we know it, is kind of coming to an end.
And it seems Google wants to replicate that strategy in the AI world. And it's probably going to work out for them.
I mean, if you want to become a billionaire in next couple of years, joining Anthropic is probably your best chance.
Welcome to Deep Moat, the podcast about building unfair advantages in the age of AI.
So Google announced this week Gemini 3.5 Flash, their new kind of standard model. And they're saying it's better than Gemini 3.1 Pro, almost across the board in all benchmarks by quite a significant margin. It's also 4 times faster and up to 12 times faster in their new IDE Anti-Gravity 2.0. At the same time, it's 3 times more expensive than the previous version of Flash. So what do you think about this? Have you gotten a chance to use it yet? You know, they say it's quite good at coding. What do you think?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see the smaller models to catch up with the big ones. It really seems that these companies finally found some secret sauce, how to squeeze the best performance out of smaller and cheaper models, which is going to be crucial for all the usage that we have, starting with coding. They actually had a demo on the stage when they measured like the tokens per second. I think they peaked at like 1,400 tokens per second, which is pretty impressive. And when you saw the coding output live on the stage, it looked pretty insane. So if we can get our hands on a tool or a model that's fast as this one for real life coding, that's going to really unlock a lot of opportunity to speed up our workflows.
Yes, speed is definitely like a good dimension to optimize for. Especially as these models have gotten like better and better, so they're kind of like good enough for a lot of the tasks. But it's starting to seem like Google's strategy is starting to become a bit more crystallized. So, and not just Google, I think Anthropic is doing this as well. So basically their strategy is to release very high-end models like the Pro, or in Anthropic's case, Opus or Mythos right now, and even like higher level model in terms of intelligence. And then have the lower end models like 6 months later, 12 months later, catch up and beat those, high end models from before. Because this, it's a good goal to strive for in terms of like their team internally. But at the same time, it also, makes the audience or the fans more enthusiastic about it, because maybe they couldn't afford, the high end models before, and now they get a much cheaper model, several times cheaper than the high end ones. That's, faster, better, like everything, basically, right? So I think it's a good strategy. And at the same time, they can kind of have at least like 2 major releases over 1 year, like over 1 generation. So they can release one standard, fast model that's better than the previous best model they had, and then like 6 months later they can release their new high-end model that's amazing. It's blows everything out of the water and so on. So I kind of like this strategy. At the same time, it seems like they couldn't keep the same like cost efficiency as for the previous Flash model, the 3.0. And it's probably like they had to make a compromise. So if we actually want to beat the previous Pro model, we have to make it more expensive. It's still cheaper. It's like $1.5 per input compared to Gemini Pro. That's, I believe it's 3, so it's like half as cheap, which also matches the ratio between Claude Opus and Claude Sonnet. It's around there, I believe. So yeah, it's an interesting strategy that Google is using right now. So I'm curious what the new Pro model would be like. I expect it to be much more intelligent, like maybe go a level higher, like maybe closer to how Anthropic went with Mythos, right? Like go a bit in that direction. But I also expect it to be more expensive.
Yeah,
although I do
be an
believe
issue on the bigger models moving forward, because as you get to that higher level of intelligence, you're really going to have to pay for it.
Yeah, it seems like all of them are actually becoming more expensive, right? Like the new ChatGPT is more expensive, like about twice as expensive, although it's more efficient as well in terms of like token usage. But yeah, all of them are becoming more expensive. They're becoming much better, but they're making us pay more, right?
Yeah, I think they finally are trying to project the real costs of training, maybe to the API cost, because originally they subsidized it heavily, right? So they made it as affordable as possible so people adopt it and start using it more and more. And now they are trying to catch up with the real costs. So maybe we are getting finally to that stage when all these companies could be somewhat profitable at the API usage. And yeah, we will end up paying more. But if you get better results and more intelligence, it could be worth it, especially for business use cases where the outcome can actually drive your revenue. Then any better judgment can be worth millions of dollars.
In a way, it's kind of a bait and switch as well, right? Like they want you to use it, get hooked to using it, and later like increase the price. But at the same time, they also needed, the user base and the feedback from the users and everything. So they need a lot of user base, a lot of users and a bigger user base in order to get those learnings, right? And see like where the optimum, balance is.
It's a common strategy in tech with price hikes. Everyone's doing it, and it's just the norm these days, and it's always been. So I think we can expect it more and more. But again, if it's worth it, and if there is ROI for the higher price models, and you have the choice, right? You can have the higher priced, more intelligent model where you have to really spend the money, but you get really smart outputs. And you have the cheaper one that's fast and efficient, and you can switch between them for different tasks. Then it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to the next release they have here, they announced Gemini Spark, which is basically OpenClaw from Google, right? What can you say about this? What have they announced actually in terms of like features and functionality? Is it exactly like OpenClaw? How is it different?
Yeah, it sounds like they're really trying to get close to OpenClaw. So even the Gemini Spark should have its own virtual machine run in their cloud. So it should have all the capabilities of OpenClaw with the easy setup of being part of all the Google product family. So it should have like really good integration to all your existing services, and you don't have to create any MCP server connections, any authentications or anything. You can easily hook it into your Gmail, into your calendar, G Drive, and all the services that you've been using for years. And it should really stream up the setup. So with one click, you should get very, very intelligent agent that can do a lot of things for you. So it sounds like they're really going for that ease of use, which was one of the challenges with OpenClaw. It's going to be interesting to see how they manage some of the challenges of OpenClaw when it goes a little crazy and it just does whatever it wants to do. But hopefully they did some work on that and it's not going to delete all inboxes in Gmail.
So a couple of things I noticed. I think one is that it seems more focused on personal usage right now, although I'm sure they want enterprise companies to use it later as well. But, the way they promoted it, it seems like they're more interested in like people using it for like personal stuff. And the other thing is right now, at least, it seems kind of limited to Google's services. It's not... So, maybe you can't use like other AI models in it and other stuff like that.
Yeah, they will probably have a lock-in. So you will be dependent on Google ecosystem. At the same time, I believe they said they have multiple apps in Google ecosystem with more than 1 billion users. So everyone's using Google services, right? Like we all run companies on Google Workspace, so we have all the integrations. I'm thinking maybe that personal versus work usage will be good for adaptation. So people start using it for their personal stuff. They learn how to use it. And, if you make a mistake with your tennis booking, it's not such a big deal as making a mistake with your finances in a big corporation. So maybe they can fine tune it on the low risk items. And once everybody is confident enough, they can deploy it in big corporations as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think they want to test it on individual users first before they bring it to enterprise. That's usually been their strategy with new features and new products. But I do wonder. So yeah, they have all of these like billion user products and apps, but at the same time, like we all use we use Google, we use Gmail, we use Facebook, we use Instagram, Twitter and X. Like we use different services and apps, right? So it's kind of weird that these agents are starting to become like locked into a certain company because they're not even that useful if you lock them in that way. So that's one part of the issue, that they're not useful enough because they're locked in like this. And the other issue is actually the memory. So basically, if you decide, okay, I'm going to use Gemini Spark, right? And I'm going to use it for the next 10 years. If you want to move to another AI agent, to another company in the future, that's probably going to be a big issue, right? That agent has been trained on all of your experiences and like knowledge and conversations and so on. So it's going to be difficult to like port that over to another AI agent. That's why I think
by design, right? They want you to be locked in.
It's definitely by design. They don't want you to leave, right? But that's why I think for us as users, it would be ideal to start using some kind of third party host where we keep our memory, right? And then we can plug that memory into any AI agent we want. So then we would just give it like GitHub, right? Like you can connect any app basically to GitHub and use your code from there, right? And download it and upload and so on. So I think something like that will be required, will be needed across all of these AI agents.
In theory, we could accomplish that with custom skills and MCP server connections, but it really depends how many restrictions they are going to introduce. So knowing Google, it might be heavily restricted to their ecosystem, and that's going to be a little hassle. But at the same time, we are all locked into Google Workspace. Like you have years, if not a decade, of email history, all the files and everything in Google. And there is no way you are moving into Microsoft anytime soon.
Yeah, maybe we'll just have to accept the fact that we'll use multiple AI agents ultimately, right? Even for personal stuff, even for work stuff, we'll not use just one across everything.
Maybe you can have an AI agent that uses your Google AI agent. So
right.
You
if they allow you
work with OpenClaw, and OpenClaw works with your Gemini Spark, and there's like a whole chain of events.
That would be good, but in some cases they actually ban that, right? And they disable your account. That's what they did with OpenClaw, right? So we try to use OpenClaw with Google subscription or the ChatGPT subscription or the Claude subscription, and some of them started to ban users because of that.
Yeah, but it would be the proper token maxing if you have 5 agents talking to each other, doing stuff. I think that's where you get proper token spend.
Okay, let's discuss another exciting new feature that they announced, Gemini Omni. So I think most people miss the point on this Omni model. So I've seen a lot of comparisons on X between Omni and Seedance 2.0. And, a lot of people obviously noticing that Seedance is much better, like it's much more realistic, the movements are better. So from a quality point of view, Seedance and other models even are quite a bit better than Omni, right? So I think what they're missing is that Omni is built on top of Gemini. It's not a specialized video model like Seedance is or like Google's own VO3 model is. So it uses a different technology, but at the same time, it accesses all of the knowledge that Gemini has and all of its intelligence. So you get other major benefits, such as being able to create videos that are more accurate from a real world point of view. Like if you want to simulate, certain mechanism that works in the real world, like let's say an engine, like you want to show a video of an engine. Like Omni should be much better at that than Seedance, right? That just tries to simulate an engine that is saw in a movie or something like that, right? So it might not be like very accurate. And another major feature is that it's very good at editing through prompts, right? So it's kind of its Nano Banana moment, because Nano Banana, was kind of the first model that allowed very accurate editing in images. So we're seeing that now with video as well, right? Which is a huge thing. So I think, people are really missing the point here when they're just comparing quality. So if you really want quality, I think ultimately you have to wait for like Veo 4, right? Which I do think will be like at least the same quality as Seedance.
Now it's going to be interesting what they've done to the model, because the current video models they're good, but you can see the limitations, right? If you prompt it, some of the results are not 100% realistic, and they just don't look in the perfect way. I always struggle with any text being included in videos. It's always ends up being gibberish for me. So hopefully all these new models that are trained on a little bit more broader knowledge than just the video generation will fix some of these issues, and we will finally be able to do some more advanced stuff.
I think there's also this element of getting used to these new technologies and kind of moving the goalposts in terms of like how realistic they are. Because right now, I see a Seedance video and right away I notice, okay, this is AI, this is actually from Seedance. Like I notice, those artifacts that, you can see from Seedance videos, right? The way, the characters move or, the colors, the color styling and all of that stuff. But initially when it launched and, we saw those videos with like Tom Cruise fighting Brad Pitt, like, wow, we were, amazed, look how realistic it looks and like how, how much it looks like Tom Cruise and how much it looks like Brad Pitt. But now we've gotten used to them, right? So now we move the goalposts and we want something even better.
I know at the beginning, the norm was if the person has actually 5 fingers on their hand, like you are pretty happy with the result. Now, a little subtle movement that doesn't feel realistic, it just, throws you off. So we are definitely moving expectations. But I guess it's always going to be the challenge, right? Like you make the model better. We are excited for a couple of weeks and then we start seeing the little issues with it and we are never going to be happy. So we are always going to search for more and more. But these models that are not pure video models, but they have that knowledge of a little bit more context, they might be the good direction. But I guess we are yet to see what the result will be once they put it in our hands finally.
Another interesting announcement from Google is the Google Universal Cart. Can you talk a bit about this?
Yeah, they did a couple of demos for how it could be used. From my perspective, it seems like they are trying to unify that user experience layer into Google's own services. So you might be able to shop from multiple vendors inside of their Google AI search, make purchase decisions without actually visiting the actual websites of the different companies. It also has AI integrated into the shopping cart, so it should like evaluate your choices. If, for example, 2 products are matching and they're going to work well together. If not, the AI will tell you and give you some different suggestions. So it's going to be very interesting to see what it does to e-commerce market. If it actually removes that UI layer from all the retailers and it's going to move up to Google and they will never visit their website, or it's going to end up like the instant checkout from Meta that nobody ended up using. What do you think?
So it seems pretty obvious that, it's based on Google Shopping. So, Google has this network of Google Shopping ads that merchants plug into. So they, upload their product feeds and then they generate ads from that when people search for, that type of product in Google, they get those shopping ads. So the Universal Cart seems to be utilizing that to a large degree. And maybe it goes a bit further than that in the sense that it works better for the merchants that have already enabled the Google checkout. So now you can buy, when you use Universal Cart, you can buy directly from Google. Like you don't have to go to the merchant's website. But that won't apply to everyone. Like that's only a small percentage of Google Shopping merchants that have that enabled. So maybe more will enable it in the future. But the point is, right now as a user, you probably won't see, a lot of the products that you're looking for using the Google Universal Cart. Google will need to, or the user will need to wait for the merchants to enable those features.
Yeah, I guess it
on the
depends
other
on
hand,
incentives, right? If Google makes it kind of necessary to enable the feature because they stop sending you any traffic from any searches, and you as a retailer you just have to do it, then yeah, it's going to be definitely more widespread than it is now.
So that's the thing. Are merchants going to be like further locked in or depend more on Google in the future? That seems to be the case.
Zero-click marketing, when nobody is being sent to your website from Google anymore and everything happens inside of Google, they might, right? It might end up being very restricted environment. And it already seems that they are kind of fading away the standard search results. So SEO, as we know it, is kind of coming to an end. It's still relevant because you might get recommended in AI summaries, right? But it's a very different game than it used to be. So being shown on the first page doesn't matter anymore. There's not going to be any first page. And if everything happens inside of Google UI, including all the shopping, then retailers will have to adapt, enable it, and probably pay 5-10%.
I'm sure there will be opportunities to exploit this in some way. Like some merchants will be able to exploit it much better than others. Just like optimizing, the Google shopping ads campaigns. and getting ranked better than other competitors, like you'll still be able to do something like this with universal cart as well.
The other thing with our AI models is that while they are very smart to solve certain issues, they're also very easy to manipulate. So you can position your products in a certain way that it becomes the number one recommendation, even though it's not 100% accurate representation of how it works, but you write the content in a way that the AI model just picks it up and suggests you instead of other people. So there's going to be a lot of gamification, and people are going to try to play the system and figure it out, which might be an interesting business opportunity, but we'll see how that works out.
And, all of these announcements are kind of confirming what Google also said, that they're trying to develop the full AI stack, going from the chip, the hardware, to like Gemini models and apps, like offering the whole ecosystem to the users and its partners. So they also talked about the new TPUs that they have, and that now they can access up to 1 million TPUs, which they say is like the largest network for training, the largest network of chips. But we also know that Elon Musk announced it has 1 million GPUs for its Colossus 2 data center. So it seems like everyone is starting to use like 1 million or more.
Yeah, they all say they have the biggest collection of processors. So they all say the thing. But it really sounds like Google might be the one company who can pull it off to be really the full AI stack, that they can own every single layer of it. Because the rest of companies in AI are pretty specific. You have NVIDIA for GPUs, you have OpenAI for the foundation models, and who knows where the companies of the future will be that actually own the application layer. But Google has like the only chance to pull it off. And I think they have pretty decent chance with all the users they already have to actually make it happen. So they might need to add a couple of more million TPUs to the list to be the biggest one. But with all the models they have, all the apps they have integrated into it, and the TPUs, yeah, they have a pretty good chance.
And they're actually following this time around an Apple-like strategy, right? Like Apple was the one to try to own everything from the hardware to apps. And it seems Google wants to replicate that strategy in the AI world. And it's probably going to work out for them.
That's actually a really good point, because Apple pulled it off, right? They own the CPUs, they have their own processors, they own all the design for manufacturing. They
devices.
Do everything. Yeah, they just own the whole thing. So this could be the AI equivalent from Google.
And one final story here. It seems that Karpathy has joined Anthropic. We know Karpathy as being one of the founding members of OpenAI, and then he also was the chief of AI at Tesla. And he's been going like independent for a while. And in the meantime, he came up with a vibe coding term, and which broke the internet, and like everyone started using it. And more recently, he developed Auto Research, which is a project that helps large language models to auto-optimize and improve themselves. And a lot of people also, really like this and started using the project for, other type of things where, the tools can be self-improved. So this is very interesting, right? It seems that Anthropic is currently attracting like the best talent, right? They're the ones that are growing the fastest, the ones with the most revenue. And yeah, I guess talented people want to work for them. And they also have like good principles. Like they fought against the Pentagon recently. So yeah, it seems like a winning strategy for them overall.
They seem to be the one company that everybody wants to work for. So like a lot of people left OpenAI over the last couple of years. But it seems like Anthropic is the one that everybody wants to join. I think it's going to be more than their stock options, which might be a good motivation before their IPO. But they really have a chance to become the leader in all the models, because the latest versions of their models feel like they're ahead of OpenAI. So they seem to be really accelerating. Their revenue should be higher than OpenAI. So they are positioning themselves as the winner. So who wouldn't want to join, right?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like now is the best time to try to acquire the best talent in the world before the IPO, because they can offer them like shares that, could explode in value. So, if they ever wanted to hire someone now is the time to do it.
I mean, if you want to become a billionaire in next couple of years, joining Anthropic is probably your best chance and the easiest.
I agree.
So who wouldn't?
Okay, that's all for this week. Thank you everyone for listening to us. Until next time.
Yeah, see you in the next one.